everyone. This is Adam Aasen with the Film Yap and Grade A Movies, and we have a very special interview today. You may have seen my review of Untold, Malice at the Palace, a new Netflix documentary that is set to premiere on August 10th. Well, today we have a special guest who is featured in the documentary that focuses on the Pistons Pacers brawl in November 2004. Pacer, welcome, Jermaine O'Neal.
Thanks for having me.
So first off the question, this was a topic that you kind of hesitated to talk about for many years. I know the media had asked you questions and you were kind of reluctant to relive the situation. What made you want to kind of discuss it and kind of get your side of the story out now?
Well, some of it was, just simply, you just get tired of it. And to me, I'm just wondering why this thing is anniversary every year. And you talking about 17 years ago. I've been looking for about 10 years to, put together a doc that really spoke in depth about that particular night, and not just the night leading up to the night, and really post that night. And I was very fortunate enough, and I got to say a big thank you to Netflix for letting us be a part of this incredible series of untold sports stories. And thank the Way brothers, Floyd Russ, who's the director, who did a phenomenal job. The idea was being able to put together a doc, not really for the avid basketball fan, but for the person that's in a corporate boardroom office or in a neighborhood that isn't an NBA fan, but knew about that particular night. And I thought Floyd did a great job on capturing, the vision. And I want to say thank you to everybody that allowed this to happen.
So I'm a big basketball fan. Basketball fans like to always talk about the what ifs in sports. What if Len Bias doesn't pass away? What if Jordan doesn't play baseball? What if the Trailblazers would have drafted Jordan? Jordan's involved in a couple of them. But one of the big questions kind of with your career is, what if that beard doesn't get thrown? What happens? Does the Pacers win the title? Are people's careers looked at differently? Do you kind of think about that? And what do you think would have happened if that night never occurred?
Well, I mean, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is a championship, right? So, we were built for that. Obviously losing in the conference finals year before and being so young and talented and not necessarily knowing how good we can be and finishing, with the best record the year before. But, after we lost, we knew that we were good enough. And then obviously bringing Steven Jackson in was kind of the missing piece. And we knew that to a point where I had the team come back a month earlier before training camp to get started, because we knew that this was our year. So, obviously there's no guarantee in sports. A lot of things have to happen, right? And the synergies have to be there. But we felt like, we were built for the championship. And at the time, we had the best record in the league again, when the brawl happened.
So a lot has changed since that night. I think sports have changed in many ways. I think there's a different attention upon mental illness and mental health. It's obvious, and I think he's been outspoken that Ron Artest was dealing with some mental health issues. And then also fan conduct has been under the spotlight. I know that Russell Westbrook, was talking about fans yelling things at him, people throwing coins, and the NBA trying to crack down on fan behavior. Do you think if this incident were to happen today, that the media would cover it differently?
I think would think they're probably the same way, to be honest. I think sometimes, and I say this respectfully, and if you look at the doc, some of the most beloved and respected media analysts said a lot of things, and it was like quick to judgment. The problem, I think, sometimes in media, it's like, everybody gets to piggybacking off of what somebody else has said. Right. When, the job is to get all the information that you can get before you speak on a situation. And I think it'd probably be highlighted even more now with social media and everything that's going on. But it's one of those scenarios where that's why it was important for me to get everybody that was involved, in the doc, so they can have an opinion. Obviously, Reggie was in it, and he did a phenomenal job of telling his version and his side of the story. And also, too, I want to say, mental health, right? It's so front and center now in our world when it comes to people and athletes, entertainers, whatever it may be. And that's just something that just wasn't talked about, back then when I was playing with Ron. we knew that he had a psychiatrist, but we didn't know what was actually a diagnosis. And you have to understand, if you're a fan and you're listening to this, mental health back then was it's like tearing your ACL or your Achilles, right? It's like a death wish for a career in athletics, because nobody wants to be associated with that. So I thought the Pacers did a nice job on keeping that, closed as much as possible. But from a perspective as a teammate, I'm taking it as in, he's not showing up to things. He's quitting one week, he's rapping the next week, and I was very uneducated about anything about mental health. And what I know today versus back then, I wish I would have had more information, because I could have been a better teammate, right? I could have been a better brother, when it comes to bringing him in the foxhole and not necessarily being as angry and upset with him, thinking that he's wasting our time and efforts, on a day-to-day basis. So, also too, Ron, I thought he did a phenomenal job in the doc on talking about his struggles. And Adam, I think it's important as well to know, when we shot the documentary, myself, Stephen, really any of us that was in the doc never shot together, right? It was all shot differently, different times, different locations. And so the first time I seen the rough cut of what Ron said, it was like a wow moment, right? Because I never have spoken to him about that. He's never spoken to me, and I never really seen him spoken, just speak openly about, his, the 5 count, being able to, deal with adversity and how he acted in adversity. But it all made sense after a period of time. So I got to say, big ups to Ron Artest for being so open and candid and honest in this particular doc.
About fan conduct, what do you think the NBA needs to do to kind of rein in some of the fan behavior? Do you think sometimes it does cross the line, and what can be done?
Well, honestly, fan conduct has been that way for years, for decades. I remember going through my case, doing the process after the brawl, and I had to end up going to court. I ended up going to court against the NBA to get reinstated, and that's something that I want to talk about as well, because I don't think people even know about that. But one thing my lawyers did was they started breaking down fan interactions, with players and whether it's in the stands, whether it's on the court, and that's really been a thing forever. Now, the thing that makes sports is fans, correct? They create atmospheres that is good for the home team, and they create atmospheres that are just rough for the away team. And it's a great relationship that needs to be had. And I think it's, for the most part, it's been really good. I just think that at some point, people have to realize that we are humans as well, right? And it's entertainment at its finest, when we're on these playing surfaces. And it's a fine line that you have to ride, because when you cross that line, it can create, scenarios that can be very dangerous for many people.
So I was a newspaper. I was a crime reporter for a newspaper when I came out of college. And one thing I was always told is, if you cover the arrest, you've got to cover it all the way until the legal action is done. But a lot of newspapers, a lot of TV stations don't do that. They show the guy in handcuffs, but they never find out, oh, wait, he was innocent the whole time, and now his reputation is ruined. Did it frustrate you that you were eventually cleared by the court, that didn't get the same media coverage as the original incident?
Everybody wants to talk about the situation, whatever happened, but never want to talk about, like you said, the end part of it. And honestly, to a point, as a player, you're very educated on the importance of the game, right? The game has awarded us to do things that we couldn't have possibly dreamed that we can do, right? Playing against some of the people that you grew up watching, making millions of dollars, creating generational wealth. And when something like that happens, that it's a fallout that comes with it. And I understood it, right? The NBA was under great pressure to make decisions. And that part I understood, right? We were kind of toxic at the time. The part that I did not understand is, over a period of time, it was information and tools out there to be used. But I think it was such a bad situation from a public standpoint that they chose not to, right? And I use my situation for example, right? When I take the NBA to court to get reinstated because I felt like I had the right to do what I did. We go through arbitration and we finally get to a federal judge in New York, and we get to the federal judge, and the judge is allowed. He wants to see all 28 angles of what actually happened. And so, one thing that people don't know is that when you see me sliding over there, and hitting somebody, a guy had just came from, I had just got a guy off my back. He came from behind me, grabbed me around my neck. And you have to understand this. At that point, it was fans everywhere, right? And they were trying to hurt us, right? And so at that point, once a person touches me and around my throat, and there's no reason for anybody to be around my throat at 6'11", right? I then get this person off, and I look to my left, and I see Anthony Johnson, who's, if you look at the clip with me sliding in there, hitting the guy, he has on the brown suit with the cast on his hand. Well, the guy that I hit is standing over him. So at that point, it's about cleaning up everything that comes close to me or my teammates, because again, it was no security. So to go back to the judge was allowed, to get all the footage, and then says, I had the right to do what I did. And I think it's important too, as well, for people to understand it. And this doc isn't about alienating anybody, because the NBA is a special place for me. The Pacers is a special place for me. I have nothing but respect for the Pistons, right? And their organization. It's about giving real information and being able to move on with our lives. And that's the thing, I was a little bit disappointed over the years that, and especially when I look at the Pacers and how much the Pacers, mean to me, that nothing was never said about that, right? Adam, it is a part of being a leader that comes into place, right? We walk in those gyms and we expect to play basketball. We never expect to be in a situation where we got people throwing chairs and hitting us with, sticks and water bottles. I mean, literally, I'm talking about like water bottles like this, like coming up and just lighting us up. And it's no security for the players, right? That is something that wasn't ever really spoke about, right? That could have easily been a real thing and beyond that particular case. But I think people felt like it was a cool thing to talk about. And the biggest thing that really bugged me out over the years is that it allowed my league to be talked about. It became a cultural conversation, right? The hip hop music and the thug mentality. And I mean, you look at the level.
It seemed like coded language to me. So
it was very coded language.
Yeah.
And I was extremely disappointed, because if you know me, you know what I'm about, right? I'm not a guy that is, going out and doing all kind of crazy stuff and going to jail and all that stuff. But then you have to be a face of people's ability, of people's I don't know if it's their kind of protocol on how they report things, but it didn't feel right. And this doc gave me an opportunity to talk more about it, because again, this thing is very, the NBA, the Pacers, the brotherhood is very special. And it's still for people to continue to talk about it every single year. I wanted to put something out and then be able to just, move on. They can make whatever judgment they have after that, once they see the doc.
I mean, it's important for people to note, the fans came onto the court. Yes, Ron went into the stands. He should not have gone into the stands. But you never went into the stands. You were on the court, and fans were coming onto the court trying to fight you.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people, I think in news, they read a headline, they watch 2 seconds of a thing, and they don't always get all the facts before they make their opinions. So
that was a clear-cut case of it. It's something that I think everybody that was involved in that wish didn't happen, without a doubt. Became a stigma in sports. But at the same time, I would always tell people, and I actually told the prosecutor this on the stand, when we were in court, is if we're seeing all these chairs, these iron chairs fly, right? And so I asked the prosecutor, I said, look, he asked me, would I do it? Would I do the same thing? Would I ever do the same thing if I was put in the same situation? And I said, absolutely so. I said, because at that point, I am protecting myself in a basketball game. That should never even be a thing, right? Again, you can have a conversation, with Ron about why he did it, but I'm talking about me in particular. And I asked him, I said, well, so let me ask you this question. Would you be the one that go knock on my door and tell my wife and my kids that their dad is passed from being hit in the head with an iron chair? Right. And at no point should a player's livelihood be jeopardized because of a basketball game or anything that includes in that. And at no point should the players be left out there for over 10 minutes with all exits blocked, from fans, and have to fend for themselves with no security. Like that's not really a thing. And people don't really even realize that. And on top of it, you watch the doc, the first people that are look to get pepper sprayed are the players, right, in the uniforms. So to me, to really understand that night, that's why this doc was just done so phenomenally. It speaks on everything leading up to it, right? And I think it's important that when you look at this doc, when it's done, ask yourself, what would you do if you was in that situation?
Well, I always like to end an interview with something fun. We talked about some heavy subjects, so I want to end on a few fun things. Two fun questions. One, your old coach Rick Carlisle is back with the Indiana Pacers.
Right.
How do you think he's going to do with this roster they have now?
I think he's going to do well. Rick is a great coach. Obviously, I've had a great relationship with him. I live in Dallas, so I've been able to see and talk to Rick quite a bit. Rick is a phenomenal coach, and he's going to find a way to win. And he's shown that, right? He can win with guys being out of the lineup. And I know, obviously, the Pacers have had a tough run with injuries over the last, 5 to 6, 7, 8 years. But he's a guy that's going to get the most out of his players. And I think he feels very comfortable about doing that with that roster, or I don't think he comes back to Indiana.
Yeah, I think everyone says with him being there, it's not a rebuilding project. They want to win now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rick is the one that can get the most out of him. He's a very old school coach. He is a no nonsense type of coach. He's a championship winning coach, right? He knows how to win it all, and he just has a history of being able to get the most out of players. So, I was very excited to see that. I was disappointed that he left Dallas, but excited to see that he went to Indiana.
All right. Well, final question. This documentary does come out on Netflix on August 10th. I do recommend people check it out. Since this is a Netflix documentary, Jermaine, what is your favorite thing to binge or watch on Netflix?
Oh man, a little bit of everything. I'm actually watching All American right now. I'm a big fan of that show. So it's so much, right? It's like a variety pack of movies and documentaries. So Netflix is actually my favorite source for documentaries and movies. But if you like, kind of footballs, sports, scenarios, All American is a really good series.
And I have a 2-year-old daughter, so as a parent, Netflix Kids option gets heavy use in our household. So, well, thank you so much for being here, Jermaine. I've been a longtime fan of the Pacers. You were one of my favorite players, you and Reggie, and I still like Ron Artest, even though what happened, he was a hell of a player, and he was having a hell of a season when this happened. So. We could always ask what if, but I like to focus on the good memories, all of the Eastern Conference finals and those fun games and the moments that I have with my dad watching at home or in person these Pacer games. So you've given a lot of people some fond memories.
Well, I like to say this too. The Pacers took a chance on an unknown, unproven 21-year-old and allowed me to grow as a young man. So that's the reason why Indiana would always have a special place in my heart. I'd always be a home for me. the community always be a part of that community. Personally, I've never had a lot of time. When I went away, it was um, the relationship, right? It was severed in many ways, and for whatever reason, I'm not even sure why it was even severed. But yeah, I never had an opportunity to really, tell the fans just how much they meant to me and my family, and allowing me to just to put a footprint, into the sports world, and for my career, and be able to go anywhere in the world and see that number 7 Pacers jersey, everywhere. So I want to say thank you to the Simons family for allowing me to be a part, the Pacers organization, for all the support, throughout the years, the 6 All-Star games, and then all NBA and everything that I accomplished came with the Pacer uniform on. So I have nothing but love and respect for that city. I wish them nothing but luck. I wish we could have brought them an NBA championship, but I feel very certain that they're going to get one soon.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you've done for the NBA and for Indiana.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Adam.
All right.